Welcome to Sound Up, your direct connection to everything going on in the world of music. Mark Goodman here.
And I'm Alan Light. Now, if you're already a fan of the show, you know the drill. But if you're new here, here's how the Sound Up podcast works.
We do 2 shows each week, one on Tuesday, one on Friday. Both feature up-to-the-minute news, special guests, and whatever you need to know about what's going on in music.
On our second show, like this one, it's Sound Up, Sound Off, where we welcome you to join the show, whether as part of our virtual audience or through voice messages and email. Find out all about it at sounduppod.com.
All right, are you ready to sound off? Let's get to it.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
All right, welcome to Sound Up, Sound Off. Mark Goodman here.
And I'm Alan Light.
All right, today is our Sound Up, Sound Off show where you get to participate. Ask questions, share your thoughts on tonight's topic, and on the episode from earlier in the week where we were talking about the lack of groups on the pop charts with S-Curve Records president Steve Greenberg.
We didn't get a chance to really talk about, that's the thing, we have the guests on, but then we need for us to review a little bit. I want to talk a little bit, before we get into it with everybody else. Plus, as always, we have some music news headlines to get to. Should we just jump straight into it?
Hell yeah.
All right. Big story that actually just emerged right before we got into the studio this evening. And we should note, we're taping in the evening, switching up the time this week of our sound off to see if some different audience members can join us, if that works better for people's schedules. So let's see.
We want to see your face in the place. Come on, bring it on, bring it on.
Please. But right before we turned the mics on, tonight there is finally a conviction in the murder of hip-hop legend and Run DMC member Jam Master Jay. A jury found 2 men guilty of murder in the killing of Jam Master Jay in a New York City recording studio back in 2002. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York said Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington had been accused of killing Jason Mizell, who co-founded Run DMC in the early 1980s, in a drug deal gone bad. Jordan and Washington face at least 20 years behind bars and a maximum of life in prison. Prosecutors declined to seek the death penalty against them. Federal prosecutors have said that Mizell got involved in cocaine trafficking in the mid-1990s as Run DMC's notoriety was fading. The story is that he had acquired 22 pounds of cocaine that Washington, Jordan, and others were going to distribute in Baltimore. Prosecutors have alleged that when Mizell informed Washington that he wouldn't be part of the distribution, the defendant hatched a murder conspiracy against the DJ. So
the recount of that night is terrifying. And the thing is that I guess the 2 eyewitnesses who were there waited. They were terrified. They were afraid of being of somebody coming after them. And 2017 is when they finally admitted that they could identify who the murderers were.
Yeah, I mean, once again, as with finally charges coming in Tupac's murder, these are names that have been circulating for decades around this case.
Yeah.
There's stories that go back as far as 2007 where these guys are talking about or being asked about their involvement in the murder. It is not anything that emerged as brand new information. As you said, it is just people finally coming forward to confirm and verify some of the details of this story. So,
right. And one of the woman who was involved actually moved away. She was so scared. So
she had been told to stay on the floor while this was happening.
Right.
But Washington has maintained that he had no involvement in the murder. They were yelling at the jury after this guilty verdict came down that these were, you're punishing innocent men. They are continuing to maintain that, even after the verdict was reached.
And part of the reason that they were allowing themselves that is because the claim from the defense was 20-something years ago, and the whole thing took place in 10 seconds.
Right.
Are you telling me that you're absolutely sure of who was there? If I witnessed a murder, I'd be sure who was there. I don't care how fucking long it took. Am I right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a third defendant who had been charged, but the proof didn't line up to continue to keep him attached to the case. There are those who overheard from the other room or who were, again, kept to the floor. What did they or didn't they see? But essentially, this version of the story has stayed pretty consistent and intact over all these years until they could put enough of the pieces together to, make this conviction happen. So
it's about time.
It's delayed, Lord knows, but at least gratifying to come to some sort of conclusion and feel like there's theoretically some justice being done. So
speaking of trials,
Speaking of trials, we're going to move to that story.
Why not? We're in the legal lane.
Stay in the legal segment. As we have noted, the Hotel California. What do we say? The
stolen lyrics case is what they're talking about.
The stolen or not stolen lyrics case involving nearly 100 pages of lyrics from the writing of the Hotel California album continues in the courtroom, and Don Henley has testified over the last couple of days in this case. Not really anything that's brand new information, as far as I can tell. These are all continuing to confirm the story as it's been played out and continuing to raise the question of
who owns the stuff. That is the ultimate question. Even, it's weird because initially, and this is all in the transcripts of the trial, initially the deal was made with this guy, Ed Sanders from the Fugs, to do a book on the Eagles, and he was given access. I know that Irving Azoff said a few days ago that in the contract itself, it says that Ed does not own the material. If that's in there, then everybody else is screwed, I would think.
Once again, it still continues to come back to sound like a broken record. There are no charges filed against Ed Sanders. There was no allegation. There continues to this day to be no allegation that he stole this material. And therefore, the defendants say, this was presented to us.
It's not our fault.
It's not our fault.
We didn't know.
So we didn't know. Is that sufficient defense in this situation?
I wonder about that. I mean, we talked about the idea that this world, this memorabilia trading world can get, a little
dicey. It's all, the whole thing is dicey. I mean, it's really, we've said so many of these things that are people selling lyrics are things they fished off the floor of the recording studio. Things that were left behind after a session, or out of the dumpster, or when you're selling autographs. I mean, what's the understanding? Like somebody buys whatever it is, an autograph from somebody who's no longer around, or somebody who just signed a thing, whatever. Like, what's the ownership question for the resale around some of these things? And in this case, it's it still is a very gray question to me.
Who did they go to first? And then was it Christie's they went to, or Sotheby's they went to first? And Sotheby's said, no, we don't know what the story is. And then they went to Christie's, who also said no?
I forget if it's Sotheby's then Christie's or Christie's then Sotheby's. I think it was Sotheby's first who said this provenance is a little too questionable for us to proceed. But then eventually they then regrouped and went back to Christie's, who did agree to take this on and sell it, at which point the hammer came down here. But anyway, so the testimony, Henley has talked about his writing process. He's talked about what these manuscripts are, what they represent for them, the personal nature of drafting the songs that you write and how this goes. Things got a little bit testy when he was grilled about any prior criminal convictions.
Because of that 16-year-old.
Because of he went on to describe an evening in which he called a sex worker whom he believed to be of age at the time of their interaction.
That's really disgusting that who cares about that? That's idiotic. That's like grasping at straws. Like, that's supposed to cast doubt on Don Henley and his word. Police.
We will see. I know initially, at least one side was saying this was going to be a 10-day trial in and out. That does not seem to be the case. It seems like this is going to go on longer than that. And there's nothing about the basic facts of this case that I think that either side is challenging. Everybody's version of the story is consistent. It's just a question of what was the understanding, or what is the claim to ownership after however many years pass for this material.
I think that the thing that sort of confuses me with that are the people who are not charged.
The person who is not charged.
Well, Ed Sanders.
Yes.
Who unloaded this stuff, and I forget, not a lot of money.
No, not a bunch of money.
And then that person went and tried to unload it again.
And that person is among the three who are charged here.
Right.
But that initial point of contact is not.
And isn't it odd? Well, as I said, if the contract, as Azoff is saying, if the contract specifies that these materials are made available but not for ownership, then good night. That's it. We're done.
That's the first we've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, there's a lot, I don't know, if this matters or not, a lot of question over Henley saying the pages that Sanders turned in weren't good enough and I didn't want him to proceed with this book. But then they produced some phone call that Henley made to Ed Sanders saying, hey, it's great, man. Keep going, keep working on it. it. I don't know what the legal, other than they didn't cut him off at that point, what the legal significance of that is. But one thing that they're exploring a lot is, did they want Sanders to continue to write this book or not? And if they did, then they let him hang on to this stuff, and they knew that he had it, and, time marches on.
I think we should question everyone's memory. This happened a long time ago. They forget these people are old. They forget everything. That's what worked in the other case. So.
Well, it's old in that Henley said when they played him back the phone call, apparently, the phone call for him to Sanders, he said, well, a lot of my hearing is shot because of my business, so I'll do my best to be able to make out what I'm saying here, but I can't promise you anything.
God, come on.
So
please.
Stay tuned. Continue to stay tuned. Couple of quick things we have to mention. Over recent years, Wille Nelson has been leading the All-Star Outlaw Music Festival. They announced this year's dates and this year's lineup. And folks, we got a
pretty awesome
doozy of a tour. Wille Nelson and family will be joined by Bob Dylan, and then rotating guests, which include Robert Plant and Alison Krauss and John Mellencamp. In addition, some emerging artists, Solis, Brittany Spencer, Billy Strings, Southern Avenue, all great, who are picking up some of these dates. Wille Nelson says, I'm thrilled to get back on the road again with my family and friends playing the music we love for the fans that we love.
That is the same press release he's been using since 1971.
Send it back out. Now, a few years back, Willie and Dylan did a tour of minor league baseball parks together.
Yeah.
They have toured together. This was tremendous. I went up to Cooperstown to see them play there, which was, tough to beat, but pretty great. Basically, the East Coast dates, near as I can tell, more or less, is Willie and Dylan and Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. And the West Coast dates are Willie and Dylan and Mellencamp, which is a crank fest.
A crank fest? Wait a second. Are you talking? Was that oldism right there? Did you just
some crabby guys out there on the road?
That's the get off my lawn tour.
I don't see Plant and Mellencamp gelling together.
No, that's not. They're keeping them. Those guys they're keeping apart. That's the either or. So.
What I was wondering is are people going to go? The fact that Dylan and Mellencamp are on. Willie is Willie. He's sort of, he is a national treasure. And I guess if you're going to go, you're going to go. I mean, that's one of the things maybe we can talk with audience about. I'm curious, just off the cuff, you into it or not? I
got to say, for people who have not seen these, talk about do a big bucket list swing in one night.
Right.
If you haven't seen these guys or haven't for a long time or whatever it is, to go and walk away saying, I can cross all of those legends off, you've achieved something for an evening with that.
It's the truth.
So,
it is the truth. So,
should be great.
One other bit of news. I'm tripping on this. Could they not get Billie Eilish at the Oscars? What's the story?
Well, I don't know if Billy's doing that song.
Ryan Gosling will perform I'm Just Ken at the Oscars. Now, I know it was nominated, but I think that was a mistake.
You think the nomination was a mistake?
Oops. Yeah, it was oops. Oh, I didn't mean to check. Shit, I checked that one.
It's a great moment. It's a great moment.
Love the guy. And but is Billie Eilish performing?
I assume that she is.
Like everyone who's nominated for Best Song, I guess.
Yeah, the nominees perform. That's how it works. And there's a nomination.
Can you imagine Ryan Gosling walking away with the statue?
And listen, the credits on it. It is Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt's song.
That's true. That's true. It's not a performance thing. It's a writing thing.
Put an Oscar up on our friend Ronson's shelf. It wouldn't be too bad. But
he's also nominated for an Oscar for playing Ken, isn't he?
Yes.
He is. And Greta Gerwig did not.
Which, as many people have said, that is the plot of Barbie.
Yeah.
That Ryan Gosling gets the nomination and Margot Robbie does not. That was what the movie was about. So, yes, there's that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I can only imagine.
I'm going to be watching
the production spectacle that will be the I'm Just Ken performance.
It's going to be great. I'm going to be watching for sure. I have to say, what also is great, what's happening right now with us, this is the Sound Up, Sound Off show. And for the first time, we're able to figure it out where we actually can see our audience all with us.
Not all. Some are still off screen.
So let's take a break. And we got lots to talk about with you. The big question to the audience is about bands.
For those who will recap, but our conversation earlier this week with Steve Greenberg from S-Curve Records, breaking down the fact that solo artists made up 97% of the Hot 100 for 2023. So we want to talk through some of that, or your thoughts about any of the news we've been talking about, or whatever else is on your mind.
So let's take a fast break, and we come back with our Sound Off audience live.
It's your turn to sound off, right here on Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light.
All right, we are back with our virtual audience. We've got lots of people on the screen with us, a couple more in the chat, and we thank you all. I'm hoping that this special time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, I hope that maybe that helps for future shows. Maybe we should be doing it at this hour because it's easier for you guys.
We're still figuring it out, folks. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, but welcome to everyone who is joining us. Really appreciate it, and I just wanted to say that I'm glad that we had a little stuff to talk about at the beginning because it gave Sunita a time to fold her laundry, which I still have to do.
So I want to read a quick email from a friend of ours, and then when we can just recap for a minute what our conversation around this week's topic was, and then see what everybody wants to say. But we got a note here. Regulars will figure out who this is from. Good day, all. So happy about the new podcast. It's refreshing and brings me back a couple of years. My life's on autopilot at the moment, just coasting along, but I will shout out the new Bruce album coming out March 1st. And yes, I'm getting it, and we'll send in a review. If I point out that the new Bruce album does not mean Springsteen, but in this case means Bruce Dickinson, then you will know who is writing. Assuming the entire Volume OG crew is there this evening, wanted to say hi. Peace and love as always. Up the irons. Harvey in Canada joins us with the latest Iron Maiden update. That has been his job, and he's back in the saddle. Passing along his regards. So, yeah, earlier this week, on the first show this week, we had our friend Steve Greenberg, who's a Grammy-winning producer, president of S-Curve Records, sometime journalist and historian, and he had done a year-end essay that's posted on the S-Curve website, looking statistically at the fact that there are really hardly any at all groups left on the pop charts. There were 2 in 2023. There was 1 re-entry, and there were 2, one from a Latin group, one from Grupo Fantasma, and one from a country group, Old Dominion. And that is it. There was not a hip hop group. There was not an R&B vocal group. There was not a rock band. There was not anything. The nominees for the Grammy for Best Duo and Group Vocal were all one-off collaborations, no actual duos or groups. And Steve was ascribing some of this to essentially the way we consume music now and the explosion of TikTok and the look for A, intimacy and connection in what people listen to, and B, how much better one face looks on your phone screen does than 3 or 4.
It's another thing that the internet screwed up. It's just one more thing that the internet screwed up.
Mark, what did you come away, from that conversation?
I was gobsmacked when I initially read his essay. I hadn't really thought about that, but I agree with him 1,000%. I've been saying all along, and I'm not the only one, plenty of people have been saying that something like TikTok, when you apply TikTok, when it's talking about music, it only screws things up. TikTok right now is how artists are gauged by record labels for getting signed. How many followers do you have? Has anything gone viral? So it takes it away from the quality of the music, which was part of what Steve was pointing out.
But what Steve was also pointing out, and as we discussed, is this is what happens. That technology constantly leads new patterns in music and new patterns in distribution and new patterns in what people respond to and listen to. And then it kind of shakes out into a different, and we've said this is whether it was 78s, whether it was music videos.
The cylinder made way for the 78, which made for the
album. And then it was the album. As you recall better than anybody, when MTV started, the reaction was, oh, great. Now only people who are good looking are going to get signed. That's the end of, Bob Dylan's not going to get signed in an MTV world.
Right.
That was a phase that we went through in adjusting to that technology.
And the opposite wound up being true.
Just as this is a phase of adjusting to this technology.
That idea, the idea that technology at once, the feeling was now it's an even playing field. Everybody has the same chance. It's going to be great for music. Well, maybe not. We should jump to some of our audience here. Go ahead, Alan.
Let me just read a couple comments in the chat. Just to get caught up. Joel wrote, being a solo act means you don't have to split that $1.39 streaming money 4 ways. And fair enough. I mean, that was another thing that Steve said is it's easy. You can do recording on your own. You don't have to deal with
someone else's vision.
Someone else's vision, compromise what your work is and split the cash. It's, that's a factor. Scott asks if 98% of the top 100 are solo artists, doesn't the pendulum ache to swing the other way? A totally fair question. When all of a sudden a vocal group is going to feel really fresh and like a brand new thing and be really exciting since nobody's been listening that way, that you can easily see that happen. Christine, I want to hear more if you're willing to come on. She says, I mentioned the mass versus niche personal social media in my financial management class today. So I would like to hear more.
There's Christine right there.
There's Christine right there. Mary, and then we can get to, it says, I get it, but I feel like the loss of a group dynamic and input from all members might be limiting to those acts in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the creative tension of bands at their best are cliche more than the sum of their parts, right? That the push-pull of being in a band makes everybody better instead of just, I'll do what I want and that's good enough. Steve said it's exciting that people can fulfill their own vision without compromise. The other side of that is sometimes that negotiation makes for better music.
I wonder, one of the things that we sort of alluded to a bit, and then we are going to jump to our audience, is that we're talking about the pop chart. Okay. Alternative bands, there's tons. Rock bands, there's tons. But the thing is that those bands are not writing crossover hits. We have a whole channel on Sirius XM, Pop Rocks, about rock songs that crossed over to pop.
But that's why even more striking to me was to think about like R&B vocal groups. I mean, we're all of the age, forget the Supremes and the Miracles and everything else. We are of the age that we grew up with TLC. We grew up with En Vogue. We grew up with all those 90s, like Boyz II Men. They ruled the world. That's invisible now.
Yeah.
So it's not just a rock versus pop thing. All right. So who we got?
Let's go to Christine first and let's chat.
Today, I taught my financial management class and I listened to the podcast on my way to work because I got about an hour commute each way. And we talked about risk and risk management today. And one of the things I talked about was if you're doing social media marketing, which I've also taught a social media class, is that when he mentioned about how they've gone to like it's targeted to you specifically as opposed to things that are mass, and then we're waiting to see the pendulum swing the other way, that is really interesting just from a financial standpoint, because if you're trying to reach everybody like Old Town Road, that's a real difference than just getting to a small select bunch of people. For example, like even the charts, when you look at it, we were talking the other day about how, are you just doing the ones that are country radio airplay? Are you the ones that are taking from all streaming, all that other kind of stuff?
Bring up Old Town Road is interesting too, because Steve brought that up, noting that like early days of TikTok, it was a unifying thing. All the kids who were early to TikTok, then that was a thing they all got to share. Just like, as he said, early days of YouTube was Gangnam Style. And then those things get so big that they fragment, and then it becomes more and more just a feed for you, not for us.
Well, it seems there's more. I mean, it's when something goes viral, then all of a sudden it's for us. The question is, how does that happen, and why? Why does that happen? I still think you sort of tossed aside the alt and rock band thing. I think I think those guys. Is it conscious? I don't know. But I think there's something to the fact that they're not coming up with songs that cross over. I think that's something.
Yeah. But at the same time, they continue. It's not like they're not. I mean, this is not a rock is dead conversation. Like those things
rock is more alive than ever.
This is just not
in the pop world.
Yeah. This is just not where it is that they connect. So
thanks, Christine.
Who wants in?
Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Welcome. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. I asked a question about, my son is a guitarist and he is in a rock band, but he's more hard rock. But I think it was interesting to hear the conversation this morning about the solo acts. And I'm like, where does that leave him? Like, what if he wants to switch lanes and try something else and be a little more mainstream? Does he have to like just be someone's backup guitar player in the solo act, or does he, I just was wondering like what advice I would, people would give him as a guitarist in a rock band who does not sing. He cannot be a one-man show.
Keep playing. Do it because you love it, and you'll meet people who are like-minded, and I think that's what it is.
And there are plenty of ways for rock bands to thrive and tour and work that are not about having hit singles. I mean, that's, as Mark just said, like, we're talking about a very specific thing when you're talking about what are the 100 biggest songs of the year. Mm-hmm. That's, it's an indicator, and it's an indicator when year over year, this is a pattern and a trend that stays consistent. That's worth exploring and looking at, but that doesn't answer what about the other songs that a whole lot of other people still like, and that you can totally make a fine living out of. You're just playing a different game.
Does your boy actually want to get into the business? Does he want to make a living that way?
I don't think so. He's got a career path, but this is definitely his backup and his passion. So we want to keep applauding that.
Okay. No plan B, man. If you're really doing it, no plan B.
That's right.
So we'll see.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you, Danielle. Roger indicates we should move to Laurel next, who wants it.
Hi, Laurel.
Having started as a singer with a band and now kind of solo, I'll occasionally perform with like a friend who's a guitarist or, more of a solo type thing. It seems like everything nowadays is just because it's easy. I mean, when I was back with the band, yes, you had to figure out a time to practice where all 4 people could get together and practice. The money thing is an issue. Yes, if you're out playing a gig, you've got to split it 4 ways versus 1 way. And I feel like it's just gotten to the point where, this is the easiest way to do it. I'll go that way versus, the camaraderie. I mean, I had more fun when I was in the band. I mean, I love performing, so I have fun now doing it solo, but way more fun with a band, with a group.
I mean, I guess I have 2 responses to that. One is, again, it's all a trade-off, right? It's easier, but it's also means a different kind of access. I mean, you don't need to go into an expensive studio. You don't need to, rent gear or buy gear or whatever it is. In theory, the ability for, tools to make it easier to create should be good for creativity. But the other side of that, as you say, is there's a trap of, okay, so it's easy to be okay at it. Is it, what are the challenges that come with making yourself great if somebody's not pushing you to make yourself great? Now that could be a producer, it doesn't have to be a bandmate, but as with any of these things, they're tools to work with. What do you do with them? And it's interesting that you talk about having more fun with bandmates, because the other thing that we talked about, Mark, you can pick up, was how little fun people are having in these pop songs nowadays.
Well, it seems that the if I can generalize, the generation that is coming up with pop songs are horribly alone and anxious and, just freaked out, which makes for some really great music. I mean, I've heard Billie Eilish.
It's striking.
Umpteen others.
No, it can be super brave. I think it's been really empowering for a lot of kids to hear these things talked about that, were never talked about when we were growing up in songs. That's not what they did. And it does play into this working on your own, just expressing your own feelings and trying to connect with that. I think all these things are interrelated. I think the more you think about it, the more interesting it is.
I wonder why, why did it just happen with pop? I mean, there's other music forms that are solo.
But I think it's happened in hip hop. Absolutely. Both of these things. One, that there's not groups where it was all crews, groups, like old school hip hop was, 8,000 guys on stage with Wu-Tang. Yeah. And now it's 21 Savage. That's what it is. And it's been really striking to me too, this same thing, how joyless modern new hip hop sounds. And that's fine. It's okay. But like when I hear it played, if I go to a basketball game and they're playing, some Atlanta hip hop, they're playing whatever, it just isn't, this is not a quality judgment. It just isn't fun to me.
Right.
It's very interior. It's very dark. It's very it's all these same things that we're saying. So I don't think it's just pop. I mean, it's most obvious in pop, but I think it's really there elsewhere.
I was just going to jump in and say, Joel is chiming in. The freedom of being the name is great. I can do any song I want in a band. The material is up for a vote. He's the man. If he's the man, then he's the man. Van Biohazard, I don't know if Van Biohazard is there or not, because there you go. There's Van Biohazard.
I think a lot of it is just the simplicity of being a solo artist. As I said, you can record in your bedroom and your brother can be your producer.
As witness Billy.
That works.
As witness one of the biggest pop stars we've got. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's who came to mind to me was Billie Eilish, and that it's complicated, it's hard, and I think the whole thing about one face on TikTok, I never thought of that before until it was brought up on your show, and it's true, like that's what you want to focus on is just a single person, and that. So is it just the ease of it? You get 5 people, you get 5 arguments,
right? Absolutely. I think for the most part, it is the ease of it. But I am on TikTok. I go on there. It's torture. But I think there's things that I watch, aside from puppies and stuff like that. There's stuff that happens on there that involves several people. It's not music. They're doing crazy things. There's guys who like run really fast and they're opening doors and closing things and throwing things up in the air and catching things and running and doing. There are things that happen with multiple people on TikTok, but not music. So I don't know what that means.
There's algorithm answers to that, as Steve was talking about. And there's also just, it's a different thing. If you're watching activity, like you said, you're watching juggling or plates crashing or stunts or parkour, right, or I don't know what it is. Like then it's a full visual. If you're listening, if it's about hearing a song, do you want to see 3 faces on there? Does it matter? I don't know.
It isn't something that in terms of music, I didn't think about that part of it. And I guess, does that mean, we didn't ask Steve about this, does that mean that that's who's getting signed these days? Solo artists? That's it? Well,
that seemed to be signing. Where he said is, if it's about, you've got to bring a following, you've got to bring a social following, you've got to bring a TikTok following, and that's who's getting those followings, then that's who's getting signed. I mean, it's it answers itself. I mean, the saddest thing from Steve's conversation was saying what you really can't do anymore is somebody walks into your office, nobody's ever heard of them. They sit at your desk, they play you a song, they blow you away, and you say, sign that kid up, let's go make a record. He's like, that just doesn't happen. That's not what labels are there for. They're there to elevate, they're there to promote, they're there to get you from mid-level to big level, but they're just not there. At this point, the business is not, we're going to start from zero and go create a star. And that, when we know that, I mean, it's not breaking news, but it is a little bit sad to hear somebody actually say that.
Yeah. The idea, I think, I don't know if I've mentioned it, but my daughter, who was trying to make it, had a meeting with the president of a record company who had signed Bruno Mars from, he was nobody. And he said to my daughter, I would not sign Bruno Mars today unless he had 500,000 followers or more. So that's where we're at as far as that goes. I want to thank everybody, Sunita, Danielle, Mary in Cincinnati, Christine, Laura, all the people in chat, Kendall in Cleveland, our friends and new people who have turned up. We really, really appreciate it.
Go to sounduppod.com for all information. Connect at sounduppod.com to email us thoughts on any of the stuff we're talking about or any of these logistical questions we're asking you. And Mark, before we're out of here, should we mention your plans? Yeah,
I want to mention that Monday we're going to do a mailbag show with lots of stuff that people, lots of questions, just random questions of Alan and me, and that is at least partially because I'm going to be on the 80s cruise. Yes. So I will be at sea on Monday. I will be back like the week after, and we'll chat about seeing Air Supply, who is joining us on the cruise, and so many other incredible bands.
So excited about that!
So excited about Air Supply. I am excited about Ray Parker Jr., who is also joining us. But more on that after the 80s cruise. Thanks. It's really for both of us, for all of us. It's such a joy to see you people, to see faces, to know that you're liking what we're doing, and that the word is spreading. We're getting some new people. Somebody came up to me in the coffee shop this morning and told me they love the podcast. It's working, and we appreciate your input. So that does it for Sound Up, Sound Off for this week. We thank you, and we'll catch you next time.
Sound Up is hosted by Mark Goodman and Alan Light, produced by Roger Coletti, and distributed by Revolver Podcasts. Theme music by Smile from Tokyo. Get Sound Up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information, email us at connect@sounduppod.com. We'll see you next time right here on Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light.